No warning, just a shocking surprise. Virginia College unexpectedly closed its campuses across the nation, including in Greensboro.
WFMY News 2's Jessica Winter has talked to some very upset students while digging deeper into the reason.
I saw people crying today as they left the school with their belongings in boxes. Students are left without degrees, staff members without jobs, and all with a lot of questions.
Sucks, man. It blows.
Edward Kirby was excited to walk across the stage to get his diploma from Virginia College.
That hurt. Like, that's what I was looking forward to.
A milestone and a memory he'll now never make.
No graduation, no commencement ceremony.
Virginia College, a for-profit school, abruptly announced it's closing all of its campuses across the country, including in Greensboro.
I am really upset.
Students were sent this email saying the college lost its accreditation and, quite frankly, didn't have the money to keep going.
I was looking forward to walking the stage. I have a 4.0 GPA, so.
Shakitha Bernard is just 50 hours away from earning her degree. She says her credits won't transfer to any other college because the fast-track courses at Virginia College aren't comparable to classes at other schools.
That's gone now. And all I'm stuck with now is a bunch of loans.
She's now walking away with debt instead of a degree.
I don't get to show people what I strive so hard for, and it's not fair.
The parent company of Virginia College, Education Corporation of America, sent out a statement that reads in part, "We recognize this will have a dramatic effect on our students and employees." They didn't answer my questions as to whether or not student credits are transferable or if they'll be getting refunds. Their doors officially close on December 19th, but most are finishing up classes this Friday.
Jessica, thank you. In all, 46 Virginia College campuses across the country will close, including the one in Charlotte.